Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to another awesome episode of On the Throttle with Jacqui Van Ham. My buddy Josh Trokey out here bringing you all of the breaking news going on out here in motorcycles and power sports. We've got an action-packed show for you today, so buckle up because there's going to be an awful lot going on in today's program. In my neck of the woods, I'm going to be talking about the folks over at Can-Am, also known as BRP, have been teasing out a motorcycle for approximately 500 years, and I've got a little bit more information about it. And I'm also going to be talking about a very, very cool machine that was just dropped this past week, revealed from the folks over at Segway. Josh, what you got going on in your neck of the woods?
I got to tell you, Can-Am has not been doing it as long as Triumph has. But thankfully, this week, I am not talking about Triumph. I am talking about, there's some interesting speculation that's sort of official, but not officially said, coming out from KTM about another engine. And then we have good news for dealers and bad news for people that let their bikes sit places. So we'll talk about both of those.
Ruh-roh. Well, we're all going to have to wait
Correct.
to hear that story after this word from our sponsor. Woo! Pengrade, kicking out the jams at the beginning of today's program. Huge thanks to the folks at Pengrade. So for my very first topic for today's story, as Josh mentioned and alluded to, it's really neck and neck with the folks over at Triumph for the world's longest tease out of a product. And this is Josh and the Wayback Machine. 1,000,000 years ago in 2019, the news first dropped about BRP putting out an electric motorcycle. Whew, doesn't that feel like 500 million years ago? I don't know if you remember the launch for this, but it was at one of their dealer events. It was in Las Vegas. There was a lot of smoke and mirrors, literally, as they were kind of very softly, gently revealing some EV going on out of that Vegas event. Well, then, as you may have heard, something called COVID happened. And so those plans kind of hit a rocky road, but it seems like we have a little bit more information now, and I am pumped. Some really awesome pictures were just released this past week, and I've got a tiny little bit more details going on. The picture on your screen right now, however, was from that tease out from 2019. So as you can see on your screen, obviously these are not real things. These are just like renderings, prototype type images, and what appears to be a step-through scooter on one side, and then the guy right next door to it appears to be a little bit more of, like a naked bike type vibe, a real like Street Fighter-y type vibe e-bike from the folks at Can-Am. And then that's really pretty much it. Since then, it has been crickets out here. It has been super silent. There has not been a lot of news going on. But at the beginning of this whole story, in the Wayback Machine, like I said, there was an electric personal watercraft. I mean, there was all sorts of cool stuff revealed at that show. And I think they even were teasing them out maybe at EICMA. Anywho, and then it just got super, super quiet. But at the beginning of this news, this also happened because a company called Alta in the Wayback Machine, which Josh, you should probably be familiar with, was purchased by the folks at BRP after a very winding up and down, back and forth situation. Alta was a very cool American brand. Anyway, that's a whole other huge story. But at the end of the day, all of the intellectual property and tooling and all that jazz sold to BRP. So it's been, 4 years now? So what has happened? Well, now let's get to the news that just landed this past week. BRP, the Can-Am Pulse and Origin are nearing production. Let's go ahead and jump on in and talk about it. It's an electric roadster and an adventure bike are having with an industry-leading range is what's going on from the folks at Can-Am. A year ago, Can-Am officially confirmed the plans to return to the motorcycle market with a pair of electric two-wheelers due to reach customers in 2024. An update reveals that testing is well underway and bikes should be in the hands of customers by the end of 2024. Although Can-Am is remaining silent on specifics of the range and performance targets for the Pulse, Roadster, and the Origin adventure bike, both built around a shared chassis and powertrain, the company says test riders have been impressed so far. It also released images of real world prototypes that, while still looking very much like last year's show images, which were just kind of a blip on the radar, they give a dose of reality that was previously missing from the project. And while the company isn't talking about performance, there's an intriguing hint in the titles given to some of the pictures accompanying the release. And some of the pictures' names, the bikes are titled the Pulse 35 kilowatt hour and Origin 35 kilowatt hour. So we're all going to have to figure out what that means. Kilowatt hour is immediately familiar. That's how a lot of these bikes are rated. And it relates to the capacity of the battery. But right now, like the Zero that's been on the market for a handful of years is just under 21 kilowatt hour. The Energy Xperia has a maximum capacity of 22.5, and the Ducati 21L prototypes, which are used in Moto E, have only 18 kilowatt batteries. So what does this kilowatt battery mean? We're all gonna have to wait and see, but 35 kilowatt hour, that would absolutely change the face of e-bikes as we know it, Josh. This would be such a huge, massive game changer if they are really sticking to those numbers. Or are these numbers being used as a tease to kind of rile up the competition? Or are these numbers used to kind of equate approximately to like the horsepower of these engines? We're all going to have to wait and see. But I did love some of these images that were just leaked this past week. Ashley, if you can go ahead and clip back through these guys again. Again, there's this roadster version, and then there's this slightly more kind of adventure vibe version. I think that these are just absolutely stunning bikes. I love the way these look as they are right now. Even though these are technically prototypes, I think these are really, really rad. There's a lot of patents on these. The battery pack is made of 7 identical modules, each with 70 individual cells for a total of 490 cells. There's liquid cooling for the batteries and the electronics, suggesting the high level of performance. Again, this is why I'm scratching my chin and wondering about this 35 kilowatt hour. But we're all going to have to wait and see. But keep on clicking through, Ashley. There we go. There's a TFT on board on these. So clearly, these are meant to be very serious. These are meant to be very, very interesting. Again, we don't have any real knowledge of pricing or anything too deep in them. One of the bikes has been labeled, as far as these images that are floating around the internet, as TNT, which is a shortened version of in-house language for Can-Am, as track and trail, meaning it's a dual sport. But I think these are great looking. Ashley, I don't know if that's our final picture, if there's a couple more floating around, if you want to just click on through here. Josh, what do you think? There we go. So this is going to be the Roadster. The one I was showing you earlier is that TNT, that little bit more like dual sport off-road vibe. Josh, what do you think about these e-bikes from the folks at Can-Am?
So, I mean, I think they're interesting. First off, just looking at the size of them, the 35 kilowatt hour, I don't think the energy density in batteries is out there for this yet. Now, it could be, but I think that drives the price way through the roof for technology. I think that's a number to kind of shake and rattle some people. As I looked at these, I mean, first off, they're both great looking bikes. This one, I mean, once again, when I look at it, the more off-road version there, I would call that more dual sport than adventure, but it's still great. The other thing that I noticed with both of those is, so this bike has very narrow tires. As I looked at that, the size, when you looked at it, if they have an average human being on it, and some of the other photos that I've seen, makes these bikes look a little on the smaller side, which isn't a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. To me, what it tells me is that they're going for lightweight, they're going for efficiency. The other thing that says that in this photo right here, it looks like the motor is mounted in the swing arm on this, which is an interesting way to mount that. Obviously, it takes some of that rear suspension geometry out of the equation, so that way you're not worried about that type of stuff. But to me, they're very interesting. I think once again, there is a market for these. It's them making sure that they get hooked up with the right people for it and tap into that. We know that these are going to be sitting out in front of Starbucks all over the place, like a lot of other adventure bikes. And this more cafe style naked one too, I think it's a great looking bike. For what EVs are capable of right now, I think they've got this aimed correctly, and I think they're going to sell them.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the final versions of these.
Yeah.
I've been chomping at the bit, I'm not going to lie, for years. Since that 2019 first images kind of came out. I personally love that step through scooter guy. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
But I'm really into this roadster version as well. I was not expecting the dual sport, and I think it is absolutely sick. I love the look of it. I love the fact that you're right, the motor, as it were, is wrapped up within the whole like drivetrain and that whole rear. I think that that's really, really clever. I can't wait. I can't wait for more news from these folks. I can't wait to see what's next from the folks at BRP and Can-Am. Josh, what you got going on for your first story today?
So there is speculation out there, and we'll get into the reasons why with this. But what happens when you add two KTM 690s together? You get approximately 1,380, but that's close enough to what would be a 1,390. So when you look at KTM's numbering system, everything like that, there are some documents out there pointing to the fact that KTM is working on a new 1,390 V-twin power plant. That's, like I said, it's essentially two 690s paired together, which is just ridiculous to me. I love it. What they're saying is it's expected to be 1,350 to 1,449 cc's. The way that this has been found out is that, like everything else, with so many different things being so many different servers out there have been some part numbers leaked for this. So it's showing that they're going to have a new motor, and they're showing that they're going to have something bigger in size with that. And that's been on some international websites, so to say. These things always get kind of leaked out. I know BMW recently had some pricing things get leaked out with the new GS 1300 that's coming. Same type of deal with this. This motor, obviously, more than likely, one of the reasons why I took interest in this is probably going to be in the KTM 1390 Adventure, also the KTM Super Duke. Notice how I blurred out the midsection of the bike there, just so it's... to me, what I find so interesting about this is, so the current 1290 is 160 horsepower. And is 160 horsepower not enough? According to this picture, it is plenty. I mean, at that point, I believe those rocks that he's shooting out of the back tire are probably going to go into low Earth orbit. What's interesting behind this, and a lot of the talk in the technical side of this, is pointing to the facts that Euro emissions are getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. With this, we are going to start needing to increase displacement in order to get the same amount of power from engines, because we're having to slowly wean them back. So is the new 1390 going to be more than 160 horsepower? I'm sure there may be a version that's going to have that, but I'm willing to bet that they're going to stay right in that range, because once again, in this adventure series, it's just bragging rights is all, right? When it comes down to other stuff, then, I mean, like the Super Duke and stuff like that, once again, where do we need that power? Things of that nature. They're in a really good range there. So, but I found it interesting, like I said, when I'm looking through a lot of the technical bits on that, saying that this is going to be because of emission standards. So something else that, just as a reference point, the new R1300 GS was leaked at 143.5 horsepower, according to some Swiss sites. So there is that whole horsepower war. The big question in all this is, can they make the displacement bigger without displacing more on the scales? Look for this engine in 2025. Jacqui, I know we both like a lot of the smaller bore bikes. I mean, they're so much fun to ride, everything like that. But with things growing like this, I mean, think about when the CBR 250 came a 300, the Kawasaki became a 3, and then a 400. So what are your thoughts on this growth? Are we going to continue? I mean, is a 600 going to be a small bike again?
Especially for American market, a 600 is considered a small bike here. I don't think it
Well, that's
is.
true.
You don't think it is. But in this country, there's no replacement for displacement, right? Isn't that the saying? So while I see these companies ratcheting up, more displacement, to me, at the end of the day, it's like, is this usable power? Is this what the people actually really need? Yeah. The only reason why I say yes, and I'm on board with these bikes hovering around this 1,300, 1,400 mark, is because while these bikes have been positioning themselves as adventure bikes, dual sport bikes, on road,
They're on the
off road
street.
bikes. The real truth of it is these are spending their lives on the highways going across America, like full stop.
Yes.
I do not have a scientific study to back this up. I just have my own personal experience, which is extensive, of telling you that these bikes live their lives out
Yeah.
on the highway, not out in the forest. So I get why they keep doing it. It is what the customer wants. They want the adventure vibes. They
Yep.
want the sit upright position. They want to look like this thing, but they really want a highway bike. So, this is what's
Yep.
kind of going on, I think.
I'm
So
not going to argue
I
this.
get it. Yeah, I get it, but I mean, there's got to be a when to say when here. These bikes can't keep getting bigger, can't keep getting more bloated, because if they just get heavier and heavier and heavier, then it literally like tips the scales of usability, because that customer gets older and older too and doesn't want to lift up a 700-pound motorcycle. So
No.
I think that I hope that we're seeing kind of the top of this, but you're right. It's like where does it stop? When does it stop? It's not even about horsepower now. It's just this displacement game that keeps going up and up and up. And like, does it have a limit? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Josh, what do you think? Is there a limit? Are we going to see 2000 cc GS?
It depends on emission standards. Like I said, the only reason why I think they're doing this is because of emission standards. 160 horsepower in these bikes is more than enough for anyone. And at off-road, it's completely unusable. So what they're doing is they're trying to keep the status quo. So yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I mean, who would have thought a Hayabusa would be not the biggest engine out there? I'm just saying.
Man, yeah. It's just what a time we live in, Josh.
Correct.
All right. So for my next story, speaking about a time we live in, the folks at Segway have released this previous week a UTV that packs a punch. We're going to get to that story after this word from our partner.
Showchrome is a leader in powersports accessories for 2, 3, and 4 wheels. For over 42 years, our R&D team has created innovative products for riders. We're releasing over 80 new products in 2023, featuring exciting products for Honda Goldwing, Can-Am Ryker and Can-Am Spyder, Polaris Slingshot, side-by-side and UTVs, and Ultra Guard covers for many powersports makes and models. Make sure you're staying in the loop. Sign up to receive new product releases at showchromeusa.com today.
Well, it must be that magical time of year when all the folks who are in the four-wheel space are releasing their new machines, because it feels like I'm talking about ATV, UTV, and side-by-side every single week. But every week they're completely different, right, Josh? Like they're all over the place. They're these crazy, $70,000 luxury, completely zooted out, or they're super, super fast, high performance like we talked about last week. Speaking of, you can always watch all of our previous episodes out here on the internet. They live forever and ever. If you missed last week's show, shame on you. But you can go click over to YouTube or our Facebook page, where you should be giving us a like and a follow anyway, right? And go check out all of our previous episodes. So for today's show, I'm going to talk about the folks over at Segway. They've released a UTV this week, a new line of UTV, and this is the UT10 Crew, and it's a handful of models. They all come in slightly different trim packages, and this story is actually featured over on our parent website as well. Make sure you go check that out for a lot more stories and in-depth information. Again, our parent website is motorcyclepowersportsnews.com. Segway Powersports is set to go live, debuting the all-new, highly anticipated UT10 Crew models. They released these guys, like I said, just this past week, built from the ground up to deliver class-leading performance, safety, comfort, and technology features to enhance your user experience for work and play. These come packed with a 1,000cc parallel twin double overhead cam 4-stroke engine. The power plant boasts an impressive 105 horsepower with 70 foot-pound of torque, equipped with 4-wheel hydraulic disc brakes and a 1,000-pound bed capacity and a 2,500-pound standard towing capacity. The UT10 Crew can tackle the most demanding jobs straight off the showroom floor. It comes in 2 unique trim packages, the S, standard, and the P for premium. The UT10 Crew signifies the next evolution in utility off-road vehicles by bringing unconventional technology solutions to the power sports market. Our friend Gabriel Cruz over there making that comment. He's the marketing director at Segway Powersports. Our goal is to exceed customer expectations by pushing the boundaries of performance, comfort, and safety while offering uncompromised tech solutions and reliability. So let's go ahead and jump into these bad dogs because, like I said, it's a fuel-injected 1000 parallel twin, a four-stroke engine. It comes with a smart commanding screen, which again has that 10.4-inch infotainment touchscreen. I do love that. 13 inches of available ground clearance with a dual A-arm front suspension featuring 9.5 inches of travel and a dual A-arm independent rear suspension with 11 inches of travel. This has adjustable electric power steering that can be switched on the fly to one of three settings: standard, comfort, and sport settings. The drivetrain includes front and rear locking diff with optional two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and turf modes. Again, spacious interior with room for six, includes plenty of storage, premium sewn seats with bolster bottom and contour backs, with Segway branding, premium steering wheel, interior accents, 3-point safety restraints, and 6 cup holders. Because you know you got to bring something to drink with you out there while you're using these utility vehicles, right, Josh? This comes, the P Crew, which is the premium. This is what really shocked me. This is why I was saying that this Segway, these new vehicles, are packing a punch. The MSRP, Josh, $16,999 for all that. I could not believe that. This guy also comes with, again, it's got that cargo bed capacity. It's got towing capacity. The P comes with a 4,500-pound winch. The S Crew, which would be the standard version, which is the slightly, less premium version of this guy, at $14,999 for these utility vehicles. I just was shocked. That is just an awful lot of whiz bang for your buck from the folks over at Segway. Josh, what do you got to say about these cool UTVs?
It's interesting them getting into this market the way they have and at the price point they have. I mean, they realize that, look, they don't have the name in this, so they have to come in and make a splash one way or another, and the pricing is the way they're going to do it. To me, they look great. It would be interesting to get out and bounce around in one because these, I mean, let's face it, with all these players in here, this is a hugely competitive market, but people are finding out that there is a huge number of use cases for these also. So everyone's going to find their niche. Segway's trying to find theirs. I mean, I'm all for it. Let's see what happens. Competition's going to make everyone better, right?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. And we did see the folks at Segway at the AIM Expo last year in Las Vegas and had time to chat with them about some of their very, very cool vehicles they had on display. And I still have to tell you how many people walked past us just while we were in conversation with them asking if they were electric, because people know Segway for the e-mobility that they kind of got their start from. But they're not. They do all sorts of cool machines out here, including these very cool UTVs, which, by the way, are gas powered. They're internal combustion engines. So that's why I want to chat about them a little bit. Just I thought that this was really fascinating. But it's not only that they had come pretty loaded with some rad options, but for less than $16,000 or $17,000.
The pricing is amazing.
Unbelievable. All right, Josh, what you got going on for your second story today?
So like I said, I have some great news for dealers, bad news for bikers, and that news is motorcycle theft is up, way up. If you see someone jamming a screwdriver into the ignition switch of a motorcycle, go over and talk to them. Ask them how much they like
They're
their
not
bike.
fixing it.
They're probably going to... They're probably going to leave pretty quickly. So what I find interesting about that is obviously the past number of years since COVID, there are more bikes on the road than ever, which would stand to reason that we're probably going to have a few more thefts. In 2022, over 55,000 motorcycles were reported stolen, which, boy, that is a huge number. That is up 7% from 2021. What I found interesting about this is California is 30% of that number, but they are the ones that can ride year round, so it probably makes more sense. One of the things that I found very interesting in this, there is some silver linings with this. 40% of bikes that are stolen are recovered. So in a lot of cases, it is a quick joyride, dump it off someplace, and you're going to get your bike back. although you may need to do something about your ignition switch afterwards. One of the other things that I found interesting with this was the top 5 brands stolen. Number 1, Honda. Number 2, Yamaha. Number 3, Harley. Number 4, Kawasaki. And number 5, Suzuki. That seems to correlate pretty well with some of the numbers of bikes on the road, if you ask me. Now, I'm not backing that up with scientific evidence, but when you go down the road and see what's there, there's a lot of them there. To me, the whole reason why I wanted to bring this up was the lock it up. If you can, store it indoors. If you've got to park it someplace that's a little shady, this looks like it would do the trick. In the same sense, I know a lot of people that have ridden off, or at least tried to ride off with their lock still attached or their disc lock still on, and that usually doesn't end well. Ask me how I know. On this, the other thing that a lot of people do, a lot of people will turn their bike on, let it warm up. They'll walk away for a minute, even if it's in their driveway, whatever. I have always said, do not ever do that. First off, most bikes don't ever need to warm up. Fire it up and go. It will warm itself up. Riding it is the best way to let it warm up. It's not going to warm up very quickly, and the longer it runs cold, the worse it is for it, believe it or not. But with this don't leave it unattended. Don't leave it unattended running, because that is the easiest way to steal it. And when you have the chance, lock that bad boy up. I'm assuming, have you ever had a bike stolen or no, Jacqui?
Wow, that is unbelievable. First of all, Josh, I am absolutely shook by the statistics. However, that being said, I am seeing on my Facebook page on the daily people having their bike get stolen and reposting about it, which is just such terrible news. The only thing I can say is, and luckily, no, I have not. I got to find something to knock on here. I have not had that happen. So I am one of the very fortunate folks, though. I have a big place to store and keep them indoors. They don't live on the street. I do keep my bikes locked up. I think it is just a nice deterrent. Is it really going to work? No, because if somebody wants something bad enough, they're going to cut through a lock. But is it a nice deterrent? Yes. I also do tell people all the time that the cheapest deterrent is just a bike cover. If they can't see it, maybe they're not so tempted to, go peek around and dig around and think about taking it. It's, covers are like $30. Last but not least, at an area of this that I think is so incredibly fascinating, and I've seen this at the last handful of trade shows I've gone to, is this huge boom in technology as far as GPS-enabled tracking devices. I think that these are, if you're not throwing one of these in your vehicles and on your bikes, man, I don't know what to tell you. That is such, again, I'm going to use the phrase bang for your buck because it seems to be the theme of today. Insurance. But that's a couple hundred dollar investment. And that also includes like the subscription, the monthly for it, because they do have their own like cell signals on some of these on board, which is better to use than like an Apple tag, because the Apple tag alerts, first of all, it alerts the Apple device. It also has to be pinging off of other. Anyway, I think it's just smarter to buy the whole little kit and caboodle, the guy that has the cell service in it. So that way it sends out its own signal. That's just me. There's a lot of them on the marketplace. Do your own research. But wow, what an absolutely, really, really unfortunate story, but hopefully we could at least give you a little bit of advice and keep you aware of locking these guys up. Josh, what do you think?
So there's two things that I'm going to say with that. Is the nice thing for me is first off, I keep my stuff locked up. When I'm going someplace, it's pretty, I may run to a general store or something like that to get some fuel, Gatorade or something like that, but it's always pretty much what's in sight. The other thing is my bike is currently ugly enough. No one wants it.
I was just going to say, Josh, nobody wants your 40-year-old dirt bike, dude. Just you, buddy.
So
just you.
It's great theft deterrent.
Yeah. Josh, and with that, we are going to wrap up today's program. As always, thanks for jumping on, everybody, clicking, liking, and sharing all of these videos. Do take a second and share this video with your friends. Hopefully we had some good information on today's program here at the back end, especially about theft, about locking your things up. This is just like a nice reminder of things that you and I both know we need to be doing every single day out here when we're with our bikes. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for jumping on. Ride safe. Don't forget our 100th episode episode is coming on here real soon. We've got a very, very special guest interview, and we have some fun giveaways. I ran into some folks at the last trade show I was at, which is the Parts Unlimited Drag Specialties NVP in Madison, Wisconsin. I chatted with some companies out there, so we've got some giveaways going on, Josh. We got all sorts of cool stuff.
Nice.
So you need to be hitting that notifications on, liking, subscribing, do all the things and the stuff, and we will see you next week.